You know the drill. Your executive says, let's do an offsite. And suddenly you have 12 tabs open, 3 spreadsheets going, and a bad case of decision fatigue. This is where Troop shines, helping you plan without the chaos. Whether it's an offsite, a team retreat, or a last-minute meeting, Troop lets you compare locations, budgets, and travel options to make confident decisions. Troop keeps you organized every step of the way. So no more chasing info or juggling last-minute changes across 5 different platforms. If you are ready to take control of your meetings, head to leaderassistant.com/troop. That's leaderassistant.com/troop.
Hey, I'm Cortney Hickey, and today's leadership quote is the opposite of stepping on toes is dropping the ball. This is from our VP of product at Zapier, Gio, and this is just about, taking initiative, making sure you don't miss out on solving an important customer or colleague issue due to a hesitation you have.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and this is episode 339. You can check out the show notes for this episode at leaderassistant.com/339, leaderassistant.com/339. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking with Cortney Hickey. And Cortney is the executive business partner to the CEO and co-founder of Zapier, Wade Foster. And before we go into your story, Cortney, I did say Zapier. The company, for those listening, the company is spelled Zapier. I've always said Zapier. I've had lots of colleagues and lots of friends and assistants all over the world use the term or pronounce it Zapier. So I had to get to the bottom of this, but before I talked to you, I had to put it on LinkedIn, a quick poll, how many people pronounced it Zapier versus Zapier. And the poll, earlier it was looking like Zapier was in the lead, but I think a couple of the comments, people are starting to second guess themselves. But it looks like 55% of assistants that filled out the poll said Zapier is the correct pronunciation, and then 45% said Zapier. So, Cortney, first, welcome. Second, is it Zapier or Zapier?
The age-old question. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. But it is Zapier. I think the easiest way to remember that is Zapier makes you happier. But as long as you're using Zapier or automation, you can call it whatever you want, honestly.
Love it. Love it. It's my argument. Zapier rhymes with happier is a good way to remember it for sure. But my argument was always, because I've used Zapier for years, and my argument was always, well, the workflow runs or the tasks that Zapier does are called zaps.
Exactly.
And so I was like, if they're calling the task a zap or the action a zap, then surely it's pronounced Zapier. So I'm glad that I was right. I'm glad that I was right for once.
Yeah. And this was the reason why it doesn't have double P's is because API is actually in the logo, which is like a hidden thing because we connect a bunch of APIs, which is what Zapier does. So that's why it doesn't have the double P, but that's why people often pronounce it Zapier instead of Zapier because it doesn't have the double P like happier.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, thanks for clearing that up. Now let's get to do the fun stuff. So, Cortney, what city are you in, and what's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego, California. I've been here for about 2 years. I like to move around a lot. But my favorite thing to do when I'm not working, I live 2 blocks from the beach here. So love going there with my pup, Kiwi, and love going to breweries and natural wine spots with my friends.
Love it. Love it. San Diego is beautiful. I've been there twice, I think, maybe 3 times now. Love it every time. So what got you into the assistant world? Like, how did you end up being an assistant? Tell us a little bit about your backstory, maybe how long you've been an assistant now.
Yeah, so this is actually my first assistant role. Is my one I currently have at Zapier. I landed in the EA world at some point during COVID when everybody was doing the great reassessment of what they wanted out of life. But I started my career in public relations, social media, did some SEO, worked at ad agencies, then found myself at a startup distillery in outside of Austin, Texas, being their marketing director. And I loved marketing, but I decided to kind of reassess what I wanted out of my career during COVID, like a lot of folks, and landed me in the EA world. I saw this job pop up for Zapier and was just intrigued. And I talked to a bunch of EAs in my network and folks that I knew that were doing the role, and they just convinced me to go after it. So my path to being an EA was probably non-traditional, but I think the role has stuck with me for the past 4.5 years. And, hopefully, as long as Wade's at Zapier, I want to be at Zapier. And even if something happens, I love working as an EA at Zapier. And I think the reason why the role stuck more than my marketing gigs is just being able to have like the same influence and execution, but do it more behind the scenes. I really like the behind the scenes impact. And I really love the work of helping a exec team and CEO be more effective. So super happy I talked to those EAs in my network and they convinced me to give it a shot.
Nice. And Zapier are they hybrid, remote, kind of, what's the situation there?
Yeah, we were one of the pioneers of remote work. So ever since we started, which was now, wow, I think 14 years ago, we've been fully remote. So that was how Zapier was started, and that's how we are today. So we've got around 750 employees right now in 40 plus countries around the globe. And we are a fully functioning remote async first culture, which, during COVID, we were happy to share a playbook with folks that were adapting to this new world, but we've been in that for a while. So it's natural for us.
Love it. So your CEO, Wade, is actually closer to me than you, as I live in Kansas City, Missouri. Wade is in the middle of Missouri. So what's it like working with a CEO and supporting a CEO who is miles and miles and miles away?
Yeah, I will say I've built stronger bonds here at Zapier than I have at my in-person roles in the past. I think you have to be intentional about it, but there's easy things I do. Like I match his working hours. So I work 7 to 3, which actually works out great. San Diego at 3 p.m. is a really nice time to go to the beach. So it works out great for my lifestyle as well. But, I can do simple things like that. But we just work so well asynchronously and remotely. And, Slack is our office. So it feels natural to me. And there's never a moment where I wished I was in office. Of course, there's conversations that are tough to have in a remote world. That's the one time where I'm probably like, oh, I wish I could just go grab them, when you have to have one of those tough conversations, step on someone's toes potentially. But other than that, remote work is just, I love it. I don't feel disconnected from Wade. And I think, it feels like he's in the office right next to me.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. And that's one thing we share in common. So, I support a CEO that's in St. Louis, Missouri, which is about 3.5 hours east of me. And I've been working remote really since COVID. It forced us to work remote. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to move back home and be closer to family. And I showed my CEO that I could do this remotely. But what's maybe your number one Slack asynchronous communication tip? Like what's something, maybe it's like a thing you do daily or weekly or even quarterly that really resets you and Wade in your partnership from, in that work communication world? The Leader Assistant Academy is an AI-powered, on-demand professional development resource. It's for growth-minded executive assistants and administrative professionals just like you. When you enroll in the Academy, you get access to the Leader Assistant course plus streaming access to the audiobook. The course includes video lessons for each chapter of the Leader Assistant book, as well as the entirety of the Leader Assistant workbook study and discussion guide. Additionally, you get access to my exclusive Academy newsletter where I share thoughts on the state of the administrative profession, behind the scenes of my business, and sneak peeks at upcoming projects. Your enrollment also includes a one-on-one 25-minute coaching session with yours truly. But my favorite part of the Academy is the AI agent, which I've named ACE. ACE is the only AI agent on Earth trained on the Leader Assistant book, workbook, course, and Academy newsletter. So if you need guidance at 2 a.m. on a Thursday because you have a big meeting coming up with your executive and you want to ask for help, you can log on to the Academy, interact with ACE, and this AI agent will help you along your journey, guiding you to specific resources that are actually helpful in that moment. To find out more and enroll in the Leader Assistant Academy, visit leaderassistant.com/academy.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're in constant communication, but it's really nice to still formulate some type of office shutdown routine, even though you're working remotely. You know, at the end of each day, each week, I'm looking back at, okay, what did I intend to accomplish today? What did my exec intend to accomplish today? What did we actually do? Let's hold each other accountable. And then at the end of the week, going back, looking through every single meeting we had that week, making sure we followed up on it, going to look at the following week. What went well? What could we do differently next time? And so I think taking that moment to reflect and shut down your work is something that doesn't come as naturally remotely when you can just go, oh, I'm done. Let's go hop and take my dog out and go for a walk. But really being intentional about that helps me reset each day and each week. But remote work, I forget like what was hard to adjust to at first, and what tips I would give for someone starting out.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been in it now since I guess so 5 years of purely remote work. I was kind of hybrid before, but it is interesting to think about when I talk to assistants that are in the office. I'm like, oh man, it seems like so long ago that I was in that and dealing with colleagues stopping by wanting to chit chat while I'm wanting to get work done, those kinds of things too.
Yeah, I think it's much easier to be like proactive rather than reactive in a remote environment. I think in an office, you're waiting to be asked, flagged, like grabbed down in the office, but don't wait to be asked in a remote environment. Like build those systems that help you work and send the update, flag the risks, offer the next step, like just go in there and be proactive.
Yeah. Do you have any examples or stories of times when you did have to have a difficult conversation, or there was kind of a communication, ball dropped, if you will, with maybe you and Wade or other people at Zapier, and how you had to navigate that? I know I've heard of times where, I go to St. Louis quarterly for board meetings, and so I make sure I get some FaceTime with my CEO. But did you have to rally the troops for an on-site, or like what? Any interesting times and challenges in the time that you've been working at Zapier?
Oh yeah. I mean, in an async first environment, especially with folks across the globe, it can sometimes you get misunderstood. And it's hard to use the same, use words that everybody understands is going to take the same way. So I think we default to, when we're sending anything that could have some spit on the ball, let's say, like something that might be taken the wrong way, like default to Loom or a voice note, like let people hear you saying it. I think it leaves a lot less up for interpretation, and kind of creates that personal connection, as well, and makes folks feel connected to you versus, being vocal in a Slack message, which could potentially not get you the best possible outcome if it's not read in the best intention. I'm trying to think of a specific example here of that. I mean, there's always times where there's a ton of times we've missed an opportunity, dropped a ball, missed a piece of feedback. I think encouraging risk taking is something that comes to mind, and also just this AI moment we're in. When there was really the big advancements made in ChatGPT, which is now, gosh, maybe almost 2 years ago when that happened. We called an AI code red here. And that scared a lot of people. I'm just using that term internally, a code red. Basically, like this is an existential threat to a lot of our customers, a business. We don't know where this technology is going to go. Like we need to change the way we work. And that's something that's hard to rally folks around, especially not everyone was in the loop what was going on in the AI world. Not everybody had the same level of understanding. There's a level of fear some folks have of, is this going to take my job? There's just, okay, are we going to remove jobs at Zapier? And it was none of that. It was basically like, we're in this new era of working. We need to change the way we work. We need to be delivering more value for our customers. We need to have faster and better customer support. We need to make our offer more features at a lower price. And we just did all of these things to kind of reset Zapier and how we're going to be successful in this AI first era. So that caused, definitely stepped on a lot of toes there. But I think, again, like we needed to have folks meet the moment and understand the severity of how technology was shifting and changing the landscape that we work in. And the opposite of making folks scared and a little uneasy was going to be dropping the ball in that AI moment. So that one definitely comes to mind as like a, fully Zapier shift that we had to make, which was hard to do remotely. If we had had people at an on-site or, teams able to hack on it, the solution together in person, it probably would have made that a lot easier for folks. But we got through it, and here we are now with so much we've achieved in the last 2 years since we called that code red. So definitely it's worth it.
Wow. So what did that mean in your role? Like were there certain things, or are there certain things now that you're using automation and AI to scale your impact versus a couple years ago?
Totally. I think the best EAs that I know aren't afraid of being replaced by AI. I'm afraid as an EA always of being underutilized. I think these are tools that the more your value is tied to manual work, the more vulnerable your role becomes. Well, I've spent the last 2 years trying to future-proof my skill set, the EA role at Zapier, the EA team at Zapier, making sure that we spend less time on things that could be automated or supported by AI and more time solving problems, being that thought partner, helping coach, managing up. I've automated and a ton of repeatable parts of my job, but I also use AI to an insane amount. I think let me do the human work, the high trust work, and let AI help you with anything that doesn't require your judgment call. So I'm probably on the far end of the scale of like embracing AI and automation, but obviously that comes from just working at Zapier helps me do that. So I think there's a big spectrum of where folks are right now.
What are your favorite Zapier automations or templates for assistants and for your work as an assistant?
I think people always ask me, how do I get started with Zapier? What's the first use case? What's the first thing I should automate? And one of the like more cheeky ways I have folks answer this is like, what's the thing you don't like the least, or the thing you like the least about your job? And for me, that's emails. We don't email internally. We use Slack as our office. So you never get an internal email unless there's, a customer on it you're connecting with. And so inbox overload still happens, but it feels so separate from the work I do because it's like all of these external folks and then all of my internal folks are on Slack. So I think my favorite template to share with folks and thing that I built is a Gmail auto replier. It's an agent. So for folks who aren't familiar with Zapier, we have our core product, which has always been our workflows, which are Zaps, which are if this happens, do that. So these are deterministic workflows where the same thing happens every single time. But now we've got a ton of other products in the suite to build this whole platform. And agents are one of the newer products that I utilize a ton, which so I've basically trained this agent to understand the way I write. It scans whenever I want to use it. It scans my inbox for all of my emails, drafts personal replies based on the sender content, how I write, and then I can still review it. It just saves it in my drafts folder. Still review it, hit, tweak, send, but it does a lot of the heavy lift for me of doing that writing, which is just, again, it's not high value writing. It often doesn't require a judgment. It's replying to a bunch of internal like press and podcast opportunities. It helps me review those. It's just confirming calendar invites. It's not stuff that's really me work. So I love to automate my inbox so that I can do stuff that I'd rather be doing, to be honest.
Nice. Love it. So for the AI nerds listening, do you know anything about and I know this is kind of a whole topic, but just briefly, security, and because as soon as you say oh, it reads my emails or whatever, people freak out and they're like, oh, my company will never let me use that. So, what's the short version on easing people's fears on that?
Totally. I think, Zapier, you can use AI where you want to use it. So you know exactly what's being input and output. Your data is still living where it lives. So in this example, still in Gmail, it is passing through an AI step, but we have GDPR, SOC 2, SOC 3, access controls, end-to-end observability for enterprise accounts. People are running millions of AI tasks on Zapier, each week, and they're doing that securely and reliably. I think, there's a ton of smarter people than me, CIOs and IT leaders who trust Zapier with their data. So maybe go read their stories on our blog. But yeah, you can use AI where you want it. You know what's going in and out, and you can use your own. You can use our app, or you can use your own AI system that you want to add into a workflow. So if you have, an enterprise account on OpenAI, they're not training on your data, you can connect that through Zapier, for example, or connect your own MCP server. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to tweak that. But that's my TLDR.
Love it. Love it. Super helpful. Thank you. What's one other task or template that you've seen, whether you or other assistants have used Zapier for?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons. There's the personal productivity use cases, which are always great to get started with. Simple things like whenever I save a message in Slack, I'll just click that save button. I have an AI step, but again, you could use it without it. It automatically summarizes the Slack thread for me, tells me what action I need to do, and adds it to my Todoist. So it just keeps me on track, make sure I don't drop the ball on Slack message. I think there's meeting prep is another one, which a lot of EAs automate. Automate your exec's meeting prep, like you can pull in any enrichment services you have, like a CRM or data, or you can just use AI to read your calendar, generate customer briefs, make sure you're prepped, whether that's interviews or sales calls, like help your exec enter those meetings confidently. I think, there's our chatbots product is big for EAs, like deflecting questions. So EAs are often the go-to person in the org for that happens any question folks have. They know you have the answer. And so chatbots have been one that a lot of EAs have gotten value out of. And that's basically, to summarize it, you add in your knowledge sources. So let's say you're planning a big company event. You can add in your event website, your event Notion docs, give it details on the hotel you're staying at, all of that information, and people can ask all of their questions about the event to the chatbot instead of going directly to you. So we use stuff like that internally to deflect questions and distractions from our events and experiences team. Or even, we have a chatbot that's like a jargon translator. So it has all of Zapier's acronyms, and you can go in and be like, what is NRR? What is this? And, things that just make work more accessible too. So yeah, I could go on and on. The EA role is so different at each company and each individual and each exec. Yeah. It's hard to give the one size fits all, like this is your Zapier winning use case, but depending on, what your role is, you can definitely find fun things to do, even surprise and delight things like, praise, automating praise in Slack for anniversaries or birthdays, or, granting swag orders to customers that email you. You can do so many things really sky's the limit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the jargon bot because it's like we capacity started in 2017 and that was one of our first use cases. We've got a whole suite now, but that was one of our first use cases, basically a knowledge-based chatbot. And I remember we were talking to these big enterprise companies and we'd do acronyms. We'd have an acronym kind of I can't remember exactly what we called it, but just essentially a space or a channel in the knowledge base with all the acronyms. And there was like an enterprise that shared their acronym list with us, and it was like 372 acronyms or something. And it was just like, this is crazy. This is insane. Like,
Oh my
so
gosh.
anyway, so AI can definitely help with that.
Yeah, just make everybody be on the same page. It's easier to ask a question to a chat bot sometimes than to feel like, oh gosh, they're gonna know I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, totally. Well, real quickly, so I've used Zapier for years now. I've had the same automation running for 6 years now, maybe more. I think it's 6 or 7 years. But essentially, when a calendar event ends on my executive's calendar, Google Calendar, the Zapier pulls that information, including the color code, because I like to color code my executive's calendar, and other information into a spreadsheet. And then I have some conditional formatting in the spreadsheet, and then I do a little bit of manual cleanup once a year, but I basically audit my executive's time. And so I give them this chart of like, hey, here's how much internal meetings and uh, investor meetings and sales meetings and interviews, and kind of here's a percentage of all of those and how you spent your time. And so I've used Zapier for years reliably to do that. So it's been great. That's kind of my little quick automation specific use case that has helped me automate or audit my executive's calendar. So,
Yeah, that's a great one because it runs in the background and then you
mhm,
can access it whenever you want on any type of recurring basis.
yeah. And then of course I use Zapier for a lot of my leader assistant stuff with, we have a circle community, online community for assistants, and when people, join the circle community, Zapier tags their information on my email list software ConvertKit or Kit, I guess now. And so I've got a lot of zaps back and forth between those apps. Um, and so yeah, it's been a great tool. So definitely check that out if you're listening. Check out Zapier and figure out again, like Courtney said, um, what do you hate to do, and try to automate that. Great tip there. So, Courtney, to kind of wrap things up, thanks again for being on the show. Um, I want to talk real quickly about the the title executive business partner. Were you always executive business partner? Was an assistant at first, and then did it change? And then, becoming a strategic partner. So the the title partner is in your or the word partner is in your title, and there's all this talk about what does it really mean to be a strategic partner. So tell us a little bit about your title, and has it always been that versus assistant, and what's your quick definition of what it means to be a strategic partner.
Yeah, sure thing. So when I started at Zapier, I was executive assistant and I was the only assistant at the company at the time. So now we've got a team of six. And as we've grown, we've expanded the team, introduced our own leveling framework or career growth framework and tried a bunch of different EA manager models. And we've done a lot of experimenting here. I think I'm not big on titles, like whatever helps me externally get the permission I need to act on behalf of my exec is helpful. But internally, like the proof is in your work. So, folks started seeing me as a partner to Wade probably long before the title happened. But I think in short, the executive business partner title here at Zapier, we use it to really just distinguish. It's mostly EAs that are one-to-one. So we've got EAs here that are working 3-to-1, 2-to-1 ratio of how many execs they support. But when you can really become your exec's right hand. Like I go to most, if not, I go to most meetings that Wade attends, not interviews or things like that. But I'm in those meetings with him. I'm making sure like I'm remembering the things he isn't. I'm helping gut check his assumptions. I'm helping advise and question decisions before they're made. And so I think just, you know, I'm as I've understood how he works and can almost predict what he's going to say or how he's going to make a decision. And the more I've gotten to understand about Zapier, I've just been able to level up my impact. And, I often test myself and see and read a doc before he does and say, okay, what do I think he's going to say on this?
Yeah.
Folks even come to me and do that. Like they're like, hey, I want to pitch this to Wade. How can I, do this? What would you give me feedback on? And I do that. And I've even built now like a Wade GPT, which helps guide people on how to make decisions
Nice.
and how to manage up to Wade and stuff like that. So I think I've just increased my impact with him by helping him be a better CEO, but then also just increased my impact across the organization. So, working with more than just the executive team or one function, it's working across the whole business and really being trusted with company level priorities. So yeah, I've just been really lucky to grow my career at Zapier. Wade from day one gave me a lot of permission to do whatever I wanted to do here and take on any projects that I thought I could tackle. And because of that, I've really been able to the sky's the limit here and be able to really just level up the projects that I'm working on. Like the calendar is the least of my problems, but it is important. Like people, going back to that audit you do with a Zap, people say what their strategy is, but their strategy is really how they spent their time that year. Like, how did you actually spend your time? What did you say you were going to do? And your time is your most important investment. So, not to like knock on the calendar, but it's there's so much more I do here now at Zapier, which is just really enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love what you said about like, you'll read a document and try to anticipate what Wade will think or say about it or what issues they might have with it. And that is such a huge, huge part. And there's always this, my CEO, David, always likes to talk about we need problem identifiers. And so it's not just problem solvers, but people who can identify the right problem to spend time on. And I think that as assistants, we need to be able to identify the right problems, but we also need to suggest solutions to those problems. And part of that is going to our CEOs, going to our executives and saying, hey, this is a problem. I've done some digging and here's a couple of solutions that I think might be helpful and let them work with that and instead of a blank slate and let them have validate your solutions, or even if you have the wrong solutions to the right problems, you're at least, eliminating one of the solutions that could have been, that they might have had to come up with and work through and figured out that it wasn't the right solution. So yeah,
Totally.
it's super, super helpful way to look at it. Super helpful way to think of yourself as a strategic partner and practically speaking, answer. I like how you got that Zap AI to reply to your emails. That's something that AI can do more and more of, obviously, but assistants have been doing that for forever with executives, and we still can do that. But the idea of scaling that by using AI to take out a couple of those steps in that process is a huge win in my mind. So
Totally. I think like EAs are going to be able to do more than we ever have been able to do. I think every EA I talk to says, my to-do list is never finished. And so, maybe one day we'll get to end the day with a clean to-do list. But until then, I'm going to keep automating and using AI to get out of that. I just pulled up our impact behaviors for like, okay, when you get to an executive business partner, and it actually says at this level, you have to proactively identify, own, and act on novel or atypical problems company-wide that are worth solving, which is like exactly what you're talking about. It's like find, own, and act on problems, and flag those pieces of work that are, need improvement and go after them.
Love it. And that's much more fun than an engaging creative work than, jotting down minutes for a meeting, right? Like,
Totally.
I don't know a lot of people that would rather not spend their time doing problem solving, and they'd rather just like scan receipts and, read emails and all that. So
Totally.
awesome, Cortney. Well, thanks again for being on the show. Is there a good place for people to reach out and say hi and connect with you if they want to connect?
Yeah, go for it. You can find me on LinkedIn, Cortney Hickey, Cortney without a U, Cortney. And follow our Zapier, what we've got going on. We have our big annual user conference in September. So join that. It's free online. And other than that, thanks for having me, Jeremy. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Cortney. And I'll put all of the links in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/339. And appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, have a good one.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com.
The ping-pong back-and-forth game of manually scheduling meetings is unnecessary and inefficient in today's automated world. It's time to embrace calendar automation for increased productivity and capacity. You Can Book Me by Capacity is my favorite automated booking solution. It's a game changer for me and my executive. You can manage scheduling for your entire executive team, send automated reminders, add buffer time between appointments, and much more. You Can Book Me integrates with your existing Microsoft and Google calendars so you can add automation without disrupting your current workflow. Go to leaderassistant.com/calendar to learn more and sign up for a free trial of this powerful scheduling automation tool. That's leaderassistant.com/calendar.